This episode is brought to you by Yumiko. Yumiko has just launched their pinch collection. Your favorite leotards can now be reimagined with a classic pinch front. Shop the collection online at yumiko.com or contact your local Yumiko store to personalize an Anna, Daniela, or Tamara leotard in your color with a pinch front. Offer ends March 1st, 2019. Yumiko has also just added new colors to their recent leg warmer collection. Enjoy even more ways to match these lightweight leg warmers to your favorite Yumiko leotards. And now you can enjoy a 10% discount on orders of 10 or more with their new group discount. For more information about all the new happenings at Yumiko, visit their website, yumiko.com. This episode is brought to you by the Kennedy Center.
I'm Rebecca King-Ferraro.
And I'm Michael Breeden, and you're listening to Conversations on Dance.
Today's episode of Conversations on Dance was recorded at a live post-performance event at the Kennedy Center. At the beginning of February, American Ballet Theatre brought Alexei Ratmansky's Harlequinade to the Kennedy Center for a week of incredible performances. Following a Saturday matinee, we caught up with ABT soloist Skylar Brandt, who had just danced the lead role of Columbine. In this live podcast event open to audience members, we talk with Skylar about her initial dance training, attending ABT's Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis school, and moving through the ranks at ABT. Following this discussion, we filmed a 20-minute bonus walk and talk with Skylar while we walked her through the beautiful halls of the Kennedy Center back to her dressing room. In this bonus video, we talk with her about her performance, working with Alexei Ratmansky, and even pause to sit in the empty house after the audience has filtered out to discuss what a special experience it is to perform on the Kennedy Center stage. Don't miss this bonus video that pairs perfectly with this week's episode. Click over to Kennedy Center's YouTube channel or find the link on our social media channels to watch now.
Yeah, I'd like to say thanks again for joining us here at the Kennedy Center. We're really appreciative that you guys stayed after the show for this little chat. My name is Michael Breeden.
And my name is Rebecca King-Ferraro. And like Art mentioned, we are hosts of the podcast Conversations on Dance, but we're also former Miami City ballet dancers. We danced with the company for over 10 years, so this is kind of our career transition. So we're so happy to have Skylar with us here today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I think this is a first for us, too, that we've had someone bust out multiple variations, do a full-length ballet, and then sit down for a conversation. So we're always grateful to have our guests, but this is an especially unique thing that we're doing here. So thanks.
Well, thanks for having me.
So before we get started, we normally like in this atmosphere to open the floor to some questions, but we might not have time today because we have a limited time with her because, as you can imagine, she needs to eat and take a nap after that. So if we don't get to any questions, we will be doing a multimedia recording with her afterwards where we will be asking her more questions, and that's going to appear on the Kennedy Center's social media channels. So look out for that, but also if you'd like to ask her any questions, you can tweet us and we will ask her. So at Convo on Dance on Twitter, or you can find us on Instagram and send us some questions as well. So now let's get started. Skylar, can you tell us a little bit about your early dance training?
I'm from Westchester, New York, and so I went to a small dance studio called Scarsdale Ballet, which had teachers Diana White from New York City Ballet and Kristen Klassens, and also a Russian teacher, Valentina Kozlova. So I had kind of a really wonderful mixture of styles and teachers, and it was just a great small studio where I got to dance a lot of different productions, and they sort of let me have a lot of opportunities. And then from there, I started studying privately, and then I was commuting into the city a few days a week until eventually it became clear that we needed to make a move into the city because my mom was shuttling me back and forth, which I'm so grateful for. But yeah, that's where I sort of began before I joined the JKO school at ABT.
Mm-hmm. So when you joined the JKA school, it was pretty much in its infancy. It was about a year or two old at that point. So what made you decide that was the right move to make as a young dancer?
So it's interesting because I started at ABT school. They created a new division of the school, the elementary division, for kids like 12 to 13 or 14. And I also began with the new principal of the school, Franco De Vita. And I just knew I wanted to be in ABT, so I thought I should probably join the ABT school. So it was sort of a gamble or a risk because it was so new. The school was so new. The director of the school was brand new, right along with me. But I just felt that that was the correct, even career move, if you will. Even from a young age, I thought, well, maybe they should start to get to know me a little bit, and because I'd like to be there.
How old were you at that point?
I believe I was 12. I was 12 years old, so it was, I've actually been in the ABT family forever, and it's so strange because, Kevin the artistic director of ABT, has seen me grow up from, 12 years old to 26, so he's known me for a long time, and I think it must be interesting for an artistic director to see someone starting out as a child and then start to see them in a different light as an adult, mature professional dancer. And I'm sure he's done that many a time with various people in the company, but yeah, definitely an ABT baby.
So you won a silver medal at YAGP Youth America Grand Prix in 2004 and 2008. So that was the first one was right before you went to JKO, and the other one was after you were a student there. So how did those two experiences differ with maybe the different training, kind of taking ballet more seriously? And what did you learn from that experience that you took with you in your professional career?
Well, competing in Youth America Grand Prix was very eye-opening. You sort of get to see where you stand as a dancer among other dancers from around the world because it's an international competition. And as well, it's enormous exposure. Different directors and teachers from various dance schools and companies from around the world come to view the competitors and the kids. So it was a really wonderful way to sort of get out there and see, where do I fall in the world of dance, even from a young age? So that was really invaluable, and also the connections that you make throughout that process. I'm still reaping the benefits of that today as a professional. I can still go to Youth America Grand Prix and ask the people that I know there for help with things, and so that's really wonderful. But the experiences differed between 2004 and 2008. In the training, in my maturity, of course, the 4 years makes a world's difference when you're that young. And so I was a bit of a stronger dancer by 2008 and had a little bit different style, different approach. But of course, in 2004, I don't know if my training was good too. So it was a great experience for sure.
So just today we saw you just with total ease approach these really technically demanding variations. Do you think that those early years where you had to just kind of go out cold and do 2 minutes of bravura dancing, did that set you up for now for these full lengths?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's something to be said for competitions in the sense that you're going out and you're doing that 2-minute variation and you have to prove yourself in that time, and there's not room for error, especially when you're competing. And so there's a certain amount of abandon that you have to have when you go out on stage, of course, and I think the audience more relates to your presentation and the ease and the joy of dance than even some of the technicality. But certainly training for competition in that way helps to prepare you for those kinds of situations on stage where you have, intense periods of time where you're moving and performing. So yeah, I'm certainly trying to still call upon those times when I was younger, and you're sort of fearless when you're that young. The stakes don't even feel as high, and so I feel like that's really important to hold on to as a professional. I mean, it's weird to say because it's on such a grand scale, and especially it was my dream to be an ABT doing exactly this. So the fact that I get to do it, it's a huge deal, but I'm also trying to live in the moment and enjoy it. This is really what's important.
So you joined the studio company of American Ballet Theatre in 2009. What was that day like for you? How did you find out? Most dancers, that can be the most special day of your life. What you've waited for,
Yes.
your whole childhood, and then it's there. So what was that? How did that moment go down for you?
Yeah, I remember I was in my parents' apartment and I got a phone call just on my cell phone, and it was, "Hi, Skylar, this is Wes Chapman from American Ballet Theater's ABT2. We'd like to talk to you about joining the studio company." And I was like, "Oh my God," on the inside, but I was like, "Okay, sure," like
Casual.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, I'll consider it. No, I was like, it was like so exciting because of course it was something that I really hoped for, and I thought might be happening for me, but you never really know, and I don't take anything for granted. So it was such an important moment for me. It was like the next stepping stone to achieving my dreams, and I had a conversation with the director of the school, Franco, and he said, "Oh, maybe next year or something," and the call came a whole year earlier. So for me, that was a shock and very exciting, and it was a whole different experience because you're really like a professional in the studio company, and we were touring and we were responsible for ourselves, and there were no chaperones, and you're really, you're a kid, but you're doing the real thing. So it was an enormous amount of responsibility, but also an important step towards growing and getting to this point, I would say. Yeah.
So you said that ABT was your dream company. Did you watch ABT a lot growing up? Did you ever have your eye on any other companies?
Yeah, so being from New York, I grew up watching ABT, and my parents always made sure that we were very cultured. We would go to the Philharmonic, we'd go to Broadway, we'd see the ballet. So I remember watching the ballet and getting lost in sort of the fantasy world, the costumes, the story ballets, and I thought that's so much fun, like to dress up like a princess and be swept away by the prince, and this is exactly what I do in my bedroom, at home. So for me it was like the dream job, but I thought that looks easy. I actually saw Julie Kent dance, and I thought that looks like nothing, I can do that. And then I started ballet and I realized it was not easy at all. But then I fell in love with the challenge of it. I've always been a fan of challenges, so for me it was completely stimulating, completely awesome, and I've always admired ABT for their wide variety of the story ballets, but also the contemporary works as well, and the dancers that I admired watching growing up. I was like, I want to be them. So I really had my eyes set on ABT, and I think a lot of people might consider that very like closed-minded or narrow-minded, but to me that was just, that's it. That's what's happening for me. So
yeah. Were there any ballerinas during that time when you were younger that you watched growing up that then you maybe danced alongside?
Yes. Well, that's another weird thing. It's not only was Kevin watching me grow up, but I was supering in some of ABT's productions, not dissimilar to what the children did today on stage. And so I was, on stage and maybe became familiar with certain big stars like Gillian Murphy and Julie Kent and Susan Jaffe, Irina Dvorovenko, people like that were my, they were my total idols. And then I grew up and joined the company, and then I was dancing with them, and then all of a sudden my first principal role with ABT was Alexei Ratmansky's Piano Concerto No. 1, which is sort of an abstract ballet, part of a Shostakovich trilogy. And my counterpart was Gillian Murphy. And I said to myself, oh my God, I can't believe I'm helping to lead the ballet with this woman that I've been admiring all my life and, who I think is so amazing. So that was another surreal moment for me and wonderful.
Right.
Yeah.
So you already brought up just now the Alexei Ballet. That was your first opportunity. What were some other opportunities, and how did they come about? What did you do to prepare for them?
I remember my first soloist role with ABT was The Four Little Swans, which was fine because I'd been doing that since I was, 12 or 13 in this school. And also I got to do Twyla Tharp's In the Upper Room. I was one of the Bomb Squad dancers. Then there was Alexei's Piano Concerto No. 1. And I think that these roles just came along. A lot of it is luck in the sense that we need a short girl for Little Swans. You're a short girl, so, and of course you have to be, you have to be somewhat capable as well, but I think a lot of my opportunities with ABT have arisen because of injuries, which is never a great thing. No one ever wants to be injured, but that's really the nature of the business. So I filled in a lot for those reasons. So yeah, I think I've just tried to take every opportunity by the horns and give it thought, give it energy and preparation time, and that's how I tried to do my best and everything. And yeah.
Are you a nervous dancer? Like, do you get really nervous before these big roles, especially maybe some of these early opportunities that you got? Or are you just like cool and calm?
Yeah, I think certainly before when I was younger and I was first getting these opportunities, it definitely made me nervous because I felt like a lot was riding on it. Of course, how well you do in your performance sort of in turn relates to whether or not you're going to get promoted or how they see you, and that's that sort of thing. But now I think with more stage time and experience and practice, I'm able to let go of the nerves. It might come with just age and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I definitely used to be a little bit more nervous, but then now I think I've gotten rid of that. Not to say it won't come back with another role that's completely scary, but.
So Alexei is widely thought by people at this table to be the world's greatest ballet choreographer. So it's no small deal that he picked you out of the corps for your first big principal part. So what were those early rehearsals like with Alexei, and how do you think your relationship has evolved as you continue to work together?
Well, I think Alexei is definitely known for plucking people out of the corps in that way to give them big opportunities. If he sees something in you, he will push you to do his ballets, which is a wonderful thing. It's really fortunate because people have gotten a lot of opportunities for that reason. And I remember being in the studio with him, and I was so raring to go. I wanted to do everything, and he just asks for so much. And it shows in his works. And I feel that if you don't do his works the way that he envisions them, then the vision doesn't come to fruition. But he demands a lot, and it's wonderful because you feed off of that energy, and so you push more, and then he pushes you a little more, and then you say, okay, am I doing it finally? And he's like, yes, but you can do even a little more, and and this step, can you actually do this and that? So there's a lot of back and forth. I think it's one of those things where even just watching him, if you observe him in the studio with a dancer, the dancer's just like flushed at the end, and he says, okay, good. And then he gets up and is like, see you tomorrow for some more torture. But you can see, and the way he shows movement, I think what's really special about him is he is one of those teachers, choreographers that's able to demonstrate. So visually, like for someone like me, I have a photographic memory. So for me, it's actually really valuable to be able to watch someone demonstrate the step exactly how he wants it to be done. And that way I can sort of put it on my body instead of someone explaining something sort of without showing it. So that's also really cool. And if you ever watch him move, I remember when I first worked with him, I wouldn't even be listening to what he was saying. I was just kind of watching, like, wow, how is he moving like that? Because it's pretty spectacular. So, but I've kind of learned to stop being so in awe of it and try to absorb the information more.
We got to work with Alexei on 2 world premieres at Miami City Ballet too, and I remember the first times he was showing things, I'm just like, are your tendons a million miles long? Like the way he can move so big, it's really, and then you're like, you want me to do that? No.
On point?
Yeah, on point. Yeah, it's really incredible. Yeah. So as you're starting to get these opportunities in maybe some principal or soloist roles, you're still in the core and you still have that core workload to kind of balance. So how did you strike that balance between the two and make sure that you had enough energy for both?
Yeah, I think, and I've heard it from many actually principal dancers before, that your time, if if you have a certain role in the company where you're in the corps de ballet, but you're also juggling soloist and principal roles, it will be the hardest time in your whole career. It doesn't matter if you're going to do a full-length ballet as a principal. When you're in that position of having to prove yourself, be on for 8 shows, do soloist part in the second act, but still finish your core parts in the third act, and maybe have a principal role the next day. I mean, to be really honest, I was dying. Like, I really was trying so hard to keep my head above water. I mean, it was such an exciting period of time because I felt that, you know, I was maybe about to make a break or a personal, you know, breakthrough, or I might get promoted soon. But it's a really, really difficult time mentally, physically, emotionally, because you just want those things so badly, and you want to do well, and you want to be there for your core parts. And it's not only doing your own work, but then you have people who get injured. You have to fill in for them too. So, I mean, it's just the craziest period of time ever. But I certainly just tried to eat well, have a balanced life outside of work with my friends and family. I was getting maintenance done of massage and chiropractic and acupuncture. I mean, you're just like doing everything. So, but it's interesting. I actually do miss those times as well, of like being worked that hard that you just feel like you have nothing left to give. It's a really very rewarding feeling too.
So what were some of the roles that ultimately led to your promotion when you were going through that sort of crazy time?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what I danced right before I got promoted, but I feel like I was doing a lot of everything, and we had some new productions as well, like The Sleeping Beauty, and there were also other contemporary works like The Green Table, and things that sort of allowed me also to show different sides of myself. Of course, something like Harlequinade is very coquettish and charming, but there were other roles that I had done that were more serious or maybe emotional, and I think that helped to have the artistic staff see me in a different light, and in a way that where they felt, oh, she might be able to do everything. So I was also working, and I still do continue to work privately on my own on the off time. So the work really never stops, and I always try to be one step ahead. I find out what the rep is for next year, and then I prepare before rehearsals, so by the time I walk into ABT Studios, it's already a finished product. And in a big company like ABT, rehearsal time is very hard to come by. At most, you get maybe a half an hour or 15 minutes for a variation, but there are so many details. There are details up to the fingernails and the eyelashes. So I'm the kind of dancer who wants to work on those things, and so I try to find the time to do so. And that work is very, gratifying, and I feel like it shows, and it gets, there's muscle memory too. So I try to stay ahead of the game in that sense.
So you've excelled in a lot of different various types of dancing, like you're talking about Twyla Tharp's work, George Ballantyne, we're talking about Ratmansky. Is there any specific kind of style that you really particularly like, or any choreographer that you would like to do more of their work?
Well, yes, I love all of those choreographers. I will say that I feel like my true love is classical ballet. So, Pas Pas and those old works, because that's what I grew up watching. And I know that a lot of people feel that those ballets are becoming outdated. But for me, I'm always going to love Don Q. I'm always going to love, Romeo and Juliet and that kind of thing. But I think as well, with various choreographers, there are certain pieces of theirs that I would like to dance. So there's not one particular one that I feel is a favorite. I just have favorite ballets of each choreographer, and however they've been done in the past, or however I've seen them, I would like to portray those things too.
Right. So in today's performance, there was a real balance between you having to strongly bring across this character, make sure that the narrative never got lost, and then do these super technical things in these variations. Is that part of what you find so appealing about these full-length ballets, that you have to do both?
Yes, definitely. it's two really interesting aspects of the art form, is the technical side and then the artistic side, and sort of finding the balance where you're comfortable enough in the technical side of it that you can forget about it and then focus on the artistic side. So I think that's where the work in the studio comes, as far as practicing and making sure every step is perfect, and just being consistent, so that by the time you get on stage, you're able to have that abandon and let go and tell the story and be in the moment and enjoy it, and maybe make some spontaneous decisions and react to your partner and react to the orchestra and whatever. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, oh, this is my character today. I mean, I think half the battle really is how you look as well, so that helps to transform a person. So that is appealing, and I think just even the pure stamina of getting through a 2-act, 3-act ballet is very impressive. But also it's nice because it's enough time on stage that even if something doesn't go perfectly or the way you want, there's so many other opportunities and moments to appreciate and enjoy and remember.
I feel like I've asked like a principal dancer that before, and I'll be like, how did it go? And she's like, I don't know. There's so many entrances. Like, I don't know how to feel, right? Because there's so many opportunities for good moments and moments that are like, I don't know. So when you're talking about doing this work on your own in the studio, are you in the studio just by yourself? Are you working with a coach? I know a lot of ABT dancers work with acting coaches.
Right.
What does that work like for you?
Yes, I've taken actually private lessons from, every ballet dancer under the sun, from every style, because I feel that you can pull something from everyone. But right now I'm training with Irina Dvorovenko and Maxime Balatsarkovsky, they're both principals with ABT, and I grew up watching both of them. And I don't know, something clicks with them in the way that they're able to verbalize certain tricks of the trade and what to do. And so I really connect with them, and I'll book 3-hour time slots with them and just work one-on-one for 3 hours straight with them. It's really tiring, but also awesome. I think they're great, and I know different people have worked with different dancers, but those are the people I've been working with lately, and they're Russian and they're tough, so that's what I like.
So let's talk a little bit more about Harlequinade. It was a huge process for Alexei, recreating it from the notation, and obviously he did an immense amount of research. What did he offer to the dancers? How much background was he giving you that he himself had brought into the equation?
So when I first did Harlequinade earlier in the year, I was filling in for an injury, and I had a week to catch up to speed basically before I went on stage. And I remember Kevin came and told me, "You're gonna go in," and then I got a Facebook message from Alexei, who sent me an old black and white video of a dancer doing pantomime, and he said, "Take a look at this, Skylar, and I'll see you tomorrow." And so I was watching this video, and it was very much like, old black and white silent type film, very over the top, very animated. And then I went for rehearsal with him, and on top of every single detail that he gave, he then pulled out his laptop and opened up a folder with old pictures of old ballerinas. Again, like he said, Alexei's extremely well researched. So it's the kind of thing where he'll show a picture of the dancers and he says, "Can you do this?" And then you're just in the mirror trying to literally get, even the angle of the hand and the head, it's like again, it's a photographic thing, but he wants you to accomplish these old images because he's studying from these old notations, and so he wants it to be as accurate as possible. So that's what he does. He shows pictures and videos, and then will demonstrate himself, and then kind of give you an idea that it's like an old silent film, and then you kind of have to make it up from there and apply it to yourself and say, okay, how do I make this his vision, but also bring a little bit of myself into it and have that sort of mixture and balance, I guess.
Can you tell how much he's adding of kind of his own in? Because there's got to be some parts that are missing in these notations.
Yes. Yeah, it's actually funny because Alexei definitely has a certain vocabulary, and I think the dancers, we joke about it sometimes. Anytime you see a skip in the ballet, we're like, oh, that's Alexei. He has certain movements that he always uses, and even just the way he approaches movement in general. Even if it's classical steps, it's definitely his vocabulary. So I think if you've worked with him for long enough and you've performed enough of his ballets, you can tell that's an Alexei step, that's an Alexei step, that's an Alexei step. So that's cool for sure. But you see it in the little kids dance. I say to myself, oh, we do some of that in the Nutcracker or whatever it is. So yes, it's very distinguishable.
Mm-hmm. I think these sort of recreations are interesting because they offer challenges that you might not suspect. You might think dance has evolved so much in a technical way. You guys can get your legs up here and do 500 pirouettes, but it is actually difficult to go back to that style, right?
Yes.
Like holding your leg at 90 and not ever above is a challenge into itself.
Yeah, for sure. I remember when we first worked on one of his recreations, The Sleeping Beauty, he wanted the girls to do a step called a tablier, which is where you push off of one foot and basically both legs are straight. It's a jump. But he wanted the back leg to be bent, and for the longest time, at least myself, I was like also bending the other one because I couldn't isolate my two legs because that was the style back then. So there was certainly an adjustment to be made. And like you said, it is difficult to do what is counter to today's standards. Today's standards is to have your legs up by your head or to do a million pirouettes. But the way that dancers danced back then was to have your legs, maybe your knees slightly bent, a little bit softer, and your legs not so high, and your passe not so high as well, like in a coup de pied, and maybe just 2 quick pirouettes, but not 4 slow ones. I don't know. So
it's just so many details, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And also so interesting that it's a world away from what Alexei does on his own terms. So when you're doing Piano Concerto No. 1, he's asking you to do the most extreme 21st century feats.
Yes.
So you're kind of within this one choreography, you get a whole realm.
Yes.
Of,
just again goes to show his range.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much, Skylar, for joining us. We
you so
appreciate it. And we're going to continue our chat with her. So please look for on YouTube at the Kennedy Center. We'll have a little more. We're going to take a little backstage tour and talk with her more. So don't forget also to share your questions with us on Twitter or on Instagram. Conversations on Dance. Thank you guys so much.
You all so much for coming out.
Thank you for tuning in this week. If you have not already, we invite you to subscribe to Conversations on Dance now, wherever you get your podcasts. By subscribing, you will get a notification every Monday when a new episode goes live. This way, you won't miss a moment of the COD action. And if you like what you heard today, we invite you to rate us and review us on iTunes. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.